Yo, what's going on? What's going on, everybody? Excuse how I look right now. I got out the ER last night. Uh, we had it felt like a stomach bug, but I'll go into what it was later on. We'll talk about it. But as of right now, we're going into the Tucker Carlson network, and it's saying that we were supposed to nuke Nagasaki. We weren't supposed to nuke Nagasaki, but this is the dark reason we did. Now, the caption of the video, if you look up at the thumbnail, it says how the government was taught a lot of these technologies by demons. I just want y'all to keep in mind what what it says that the fallen angels came down and taught man in terms of weapons, in terms of steel, in terms of makeup, in terms of all that stuff. We were taught a lot of these things from the fallen. So, and this is biblical. That's why I always say things like this. A lot of this stuff seems biblical because it's like, why are we doing a lot of these wars and like a lot of this stuff? It's not about resources. I mean, it can be about resources too and stuff like that. But there's a deeper, there's a deeper prophecy that I feel like the enemy is trying to postpone. You feel me? And for that, the Father taught me certain things to postpone a lot of prophecies down here that are supposed to take place. So let's get into it as we listen to this priest talk about those things, guys.
The beginning of the flood story in Genesis 6, we have to understand that the flood story is not a new story when Genesis is telling it, right? This is, everyone had a flood story in the ancient Near East. So the text of Genesis is not primarily claiming, oh, there was this flood. It's talking about the flood that the original audience all sort of knew had happened.
Yes. And which it did happen, I think.
Right. Yes, there is a historical event, right?
Yeah.
This is referring to. But you could have asked anybody from Greece to Mesopotamia to Egypt. They would have all agreed at that point that, yes, there was this advanced civilization. There was a flood that destroyed it. Current civilization is rebuilt after that.
Yes.
It makes sense, family, how you have these civilizations that were very advanced. You know, there was a lot of stuff going on, and then all of a sudden there's a flood that happened. It makes sense that a lot of these civilizations were at peaks, but not because of the Most High. They didn't reach their peaks because of the Most High. They reached their peaks because they were intertwining with dark forces, fallen forces that came down here and taught them these things. And although they may have seemed like beautiful things, you know, these are things that will keep you trapped within this realm. Even though, you know, you are a creation of the Most High that is supposed to experience this and then return back to the Most High. They're trying, I think, my theory is they're trying to have us trapped down here because we are the original creations of the Lord, of the Most High. They can't be saved. There's no salvation for them. You know? So, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Now, one of the key differences in Genesis 6 that you already have in those first 4 verses is Genesis recasts what that civilization was like. So in the pagan sources, that pre-flood world was this golden age of, for the time, high technology, right? And technology in the ancient Near Eastern mind included magic. Magic was a sort of spiritual technology. And all of these things happened over the land. And that sort of losing that world was sort of this great tragedy.
But everyone agreed it was a more advanced world than the world they lived in.
Yes. That there was knowledge there that had now been mostly lost.
Interesting.
And so you find the civilizations that grew up after that, and Exhibit A of that is the original Babylonian Empire. So like Hammurabi's Babylonian Empire at the height of the
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Bronze Age. People don't understand how powerful the global structure was in the Bronze Age. It's called the Bronze Age because they were smelting bronze. They were getting the copper from Cyprus and the tin from what's now Afghanistan.
Well, that's quite a distance.
And bringing that together to smelt bronze.
In Iraq.
Yeah. And Hammurabi had a preference for a particular style of sandal from Crete, so he was importing those. There was sort of this global economy in the Bronze Age going on. And Hammurabi himself was from a group of people called the Amuru who took over Mesopotamia. Amuru means in Akkadian Westerners because they had come from what's now Syria. And those are the same people who are called Amorites in the Old Testament. And we'll probably come back to them as we go forward. But Hammurabi and the other Babylonian emperors attributed their success and their ability to establish this empire to the fact that they had access to this secret wisdom from before the flood.
Do we have any sense how much earlier the flood took place? What's the timeline roughly?
It's so Genesis doesn't really give us a time. There are people out there who want to like add up the years and the genealogies. That doesn't really work.
Yes,
because different textual traditions have different numbers. They didn't have there aren't numerals in Hebrew or Greek, and so you're using letters to code numbers.
Yes,
and so numbers get a little slippery in translation and copying and things. So a lot of people will attribute it to the earth changes that happened at the end of the last ice age.
Yes. So
you're talking roughly
10,000
years ago. Yeah. Other people who are more literalists and want to add up those ages will say that it was more like 6.
But from the geologic record, because there is record of a flood.
Yeah. And there are massive, I mean, there are villages at the bottom of the Black Sea from that period, 10,000 years ago.
There are.
That are submerged. Yeah. There are the remains of villages. The glacial ice that melted created a lot of large body of waters that were not there.
Yes.
And sea levels rose a great deal.
So do we think the flood came from melting glaciers?
That's probably the historical event that's connected to that.
Yes.
That when that ends, there's this massive shift, right? And places where there used to be civilization are now underwater, literally, right? And so, all those changes happen, and there's this massive disruption.
So the villages currently
rebuilds
at the bottom of the Black Sea were built during this golden age that preceded
previous
the flood.
to that, yeah.
And we believe that. And do we believe, just as modern people, that civilization was more technologically advanced than the ones that followed it?
I mean, if we're talking about, there is some evidence, sort of Bronze Age. I mean, you can't go completely Graham Hancock on this.
Yeah. That's actually exactly the question.
Yeah. And Graham Hancock, if you get into his stuff, he starts getting into some little new agey crystal technology, psychic technology stuff. That's a little iffy. But
we know that
there was definitely, you look at places like Göbekli Tepe and these things, there was definitely a level that was reached. There was a collapse. There was another move forward. At the end of the Bronze Age, there's another collapse.
Yes.
Right. And then
that's really interesting, family. Why do you think there's been so many times where these civilizations has reached certain peaks and then collapsed? That the civilization peaks collapse, because the reason, I believe, my theory is they were reaching these peaks because of the elites of whoever these civilizations were dibbling and dabbling with dark forces, instead of going with, instead of following the Most High, which is what we were supposed, which is what the original Israelites were supposed to be doing back in the ancient times. You know, it makes sense, guys. It makes sense. It really does. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how powerful you get. It doesn't matter. Whatever false entities will try to put stuff on you that'll have you thinking one way and it'll be beautiful, marvelous. If it's not of the Most High, it will fall. It will collapse. This was not meant for the for dark forces to reign. Yeah, they might be able to influence and stuff like that, but they are not meant to reign down here. They're meant to just influence and have influence. You feel me? And like I said earlier, postpone prophecy, man. But that's real interesting, man. Let's continue.
Rebuilding after that.
I mean, but there are ancient structures, stone structures, so we can't radiocarbon date them, but we don't even now can't say how they were built, right? I mean, how would you
not exactly, yeah.
Right.
We don't know exactly. We don't know because there's we're dealing with pre-literacy.
Yes.
Right. So we're making conclusions and guesswork. You go to Göbekli Tepe, you see the carvings of animals, you see the way they had skulls displayed in certain way. We could do guesswork, but nobody left us a text to frame any of it.
Yes. But big picture, the pre-flood civilization, we think, reached some kind of apogee, some high point technologically, and then post-flood had to rebuild.
Right. And then his Bronze Age civilization, they're attributing. Now they're not saying we have some texts or something.
Tell Monday what you need. We're creating an agent and naming him Tony. Now let's give him context. I'm giving Tony access to the relevant boards, let's say brand asset
thing, right? That survived the flood. They're saying that they're in contact with spirits who were active before the flood.
Yes.
And that it's the same spirits who are now revealing this wisdom to them. So you have this in Genesis 6, 1-4, this Nephilim phenomenon before the flood. And Genesis 6 says, at this time and afterward, right? And that and afterward is pointing to this sort of recurring or continuing or happening again.
So the physical world changes, but the spiritual world remains constant.
Right. And so part of that recasting of this pre-flood civilization, this isn't a golden age, this is actually an age of incredible wickedness.
Yes.
Right. And evil is that there's sort of these great kings from before the flood. You have the Sumerian kings list, other texts like this later that list the ages of the kings before the flood, and people tend to think that the ages of people in Genesis and the genealogies are kind of ridiculous, with people living to be 950. Sumerian kings list, you have people living hundreds of thousands of years, right, in their list. So
hundreds of thousands of years.
Yes, Genesis is reserved, sort of in comparison.
What is that? Do you think?
A lot of that. So there's a little bit of a code to it, and this is true in Genesis also. So Babylonian mathematics was all base 60. Our math, we do base 10, right? It's a decimal system. Theirs is base 60. And the survivors of that we have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, right? 24 hours in a day. That's the leftover from sort of that Babylonian mathematics.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know we had Babylonian minutes.
So, but yeah, that base 60 math. And if you look at those ages as sets of 60, there's sort of certain things encoded about the different kings and the different generations that way. Nobody's totally cracked the code in Genesis, but to give you an example, in the Sumerian kings list, the 7th king in the list is the one who creates the solar calendar. 7th person in the list. And if you look at Genesis and the Epistle of Jude, which is like a paragraph in the New Testament, he refers to Enoch as the 7th from Adam.
Yes.
If you go to Enoch in the genealogies of Seth in Genesis, he lives for 365 years. So you have the number of days, right, in the solar calendar year as his age. He's the seventh person. The seventh person in the Sumerian Kings list creates the solar calendar. So there are some sort of encoded connections going on with those numbers.
Is there any evidence that human lifespan was much longer at one point than it is now?
That's debated by a lot of people. Certainly not. I don't think anyone thinks in the thousands of years, right?
Yes.
And part of the difficulty with that is that people hear life expectancy statistics, like you hear that at the beginning of the 20th century, the average life expectancy in the US was 35. And people think, oh, people were living to 35 and then dying. It's like, well, no, a lot of people were dying. There's a high infant mortality rate.
Right.
There's a lot of people died before 35, but people who made it to 35, a lot of them, made it to 100, 120.
Yeah.
So when you're doing kind of archaeology and stuff, yeah, you find a lot of young people because there's no antibiotics, there's no right. So you have a very high infant mortality rate. It's hard to tell how long the truly elderly people were living, right?
Yes.
So, but yeah, I don't think anybody would frame that in the thousands of years.
Yes.
So it's more about them saying something about these people. And like I said, the seventh one has the solar calendar. All of them have, in the Sumerian Kings list, have associated with them sort of the things that they discovered, but the discovery is always, it was revealed to them by this spirit. Came and this divine spirit revealed to them this and that and the other. And it's technological things like metallurgy. Can
you really earn a degree without paying anything?
Yes, you can earn a degree at Maestro without paying anything. If you qualify, you receive
ancient technological things like sorcery and divination, and it's things about the natural world like the solar calendar.
But the ancients believed that technological advances came to them from the spiritual realm.
Right. That's where it's coming from.
But that doesn't happen at all anymore.
Well, this is
sorry.
Yeah. No, this is part of the larger discussion. And this is,
but nuclear technology definitely didn't come from the demonic.
Well, this is exact. So, within the framework of how the ancients understood it, and this is the ancients going all the way late antiquity, and this is frankly maintained in the Orthodox Church. So the mind, in the Greek word that's usually translated mind is nous. It's transliterated N-O-U-S. And we're used to thinking of our mind as our brain.
Yes.
And it's sort of this computer in our skull box,
yeah, exactly.
Right, that churns and processes. But that's not how they thought about it. They thought about the mind more as a sensory organ, like your eye.
Yes.
So you'll see it referred to as the eye of the heart or the eye of the mind. And that the mind sort of perceives the spiritual realm. And so ideas are like sights or sounds or smells. They're not produced by the brain, right? They're not produced by the mind.
They're received by the brain.
They're received by the mind.
Yes.
Right. And so they come from outside. Right.
But that's the experience of people who are paying attention now, even. Like, who hasn't had that?
Right. And I've never met anyone who had the experience of generating a thought. Right? Like, what are the steps from not a thought to a thought? Right.
That's such a deep point.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so these things come from outside. And so this is in the genealogy of Cain in Genesis, right? It's Cain's descendants who invent metallurgy and use it to make weapons, right? And who discover divination and who discover music and use it for seduction and right for these other things, right? Because and the idea is that these demonic spirits that are antithetical to humanity, bring knowledge to humans before they're ready for it. Right? That a time would come when humanity had reached a level of spiritual maturity when they could receive this knowledge,
yes,
and put it to proper use. And so it gets revealed early. Right. And that begins with the serpent in the garden. Right. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is not itself evil. Right. So Adam is created, humanity is created innocent, right? But innocent like a child is innocent. And created for this purpose, created in God's image in order to grow into his likeness.
yes,
And so a point of maturity would have come where humanity could have had the knowledge of good and evil and been able to make right good choices, because God has the knowledge of good and evil. Right?
Yes.
He knows what good and evil are. And this is the way the phrase the knowledge of good and evil is used throughout the Old Testament. It's used to refer to a child coming to sort of what we would call the age of accountability, coming to the age where they understand good and evil, right and wrong. And so the serpent comes and promises, the devil comes and promises, no, God doesn't want you to have this because he doesn't want you to be like him. Here's the shortcut. Get this knowledge now before you're prepared for it. And that brings about destruction. So yes, right. The atomic bomb is revealed to man. We don't use it as a carbon neutral source of electrical energy, right? We use it to make a weapon. And I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Nagasaki was the most Christian city in Japan.
I'm highly aware of it. I'm highly aware of it.
And
yes.
it's one of the first things it gets used for.
Yes.
Is to wipe
I'm
out.
fixated on it, actually.
Wipe out most of the Christian population of Japan.
So they zeroed in on a church.
Yeah.
I did not know that, family. I did not know that. Nagasaki was was a heavily Christian town or city or country, whatever. Nagasaki was heavily Christian. Heavily Christian. Wow, bro, that's crazy work.
Yeah. So, and that infuriates people when you say it, but it's true.
Yeah. So that's a pattern, right? And so, yeah, that is the understanding. And so they're not, the promise is always, oh, I'm going to give you the secret knowledge. This is going to give you power. This is going to give you control. This is going to give you influence. This is going to give you X, Y, Z, right? But ultimately, it ends up being toward humanity's destruction.
Thanks for watching.
Well, guys, there you have it. Tucker Carlson, great conversation. Definitely respect Tucker Carlson for having these conversations that need to be had. You feel me? At the end of the day, all this stuff's going on, guys. We need to have more understanding of what's going on, what the elites are dibbling and dabbling with, so that we can understand that the Most High is real. From the Most High is real. All praise to the Most High. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. For real. You feel me? That's it. It's so much dark stuff going on. If you don't believe now, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Shout out to Tucker Carlson. Y'all get him in the comment section. Let me know how y'all feel, man. Let me know how y'all feel. This conversation has to be had. Till next time, man. We on the front line. Man, just got out of the hospital. We was just a little sick, throwing up crazy. There'll be another video where I'll talk about exactly what happened, because it's gonna be something y'all never expected. But y'all get him in the comment section. Let me know how y'all feel. Till next time.